Moses and the Exodus. A world of empires and shadows. Before the world knew kings named David or prophets like Isaiah, before Israel became a nation with a homeland, before the laws, psalms and prophets, there was Egypt, a land of stone monuments, river kingdoms and godlike kings. A land where a small enslaved people cried out in suffering, believing their voices were forgotten. This is the story of how they were remembered. The story of a child who should have died, a leader who doubted himself, a nation that walked between walls of water, and a God who moved heaven and earth to set his people free. The story begins in the book of Exodus, chapter 1, with fear, oppression, and the rise of an unlikely hero. A new Pharaoh rises. Generations after Joseph saved Egypt from famine, the Israelites flourished. They multiplied and filled the land. But time had changed Egypt. A new Pharaoh ascended the throne, a king who neither knew Joseph nor respected Israel's history. Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Fear drives harsh decisions. Pharaoh enslaved them, placed taskmasters over them, and forced them to build the storage cities of Pithom and Ramses. Under the scorching sun, their hands cracked from labour, their spirits wore thin. The more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. So Pharaoh changed tactics, summoning the Hebrew midwives and ordering the killing of newborn Hebrew boys. They feared God and refused. And finally he commanded, "Every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile." A nation trembled. Mothers hid their newborns. But God was preparing a deliverer. A baby set among the rushes. Jochebed gave birth, and she saw that he was a fine child. For 3 months she hid him. When she could no longer hide him, she placed him in a reed basket coated with pitch and set it among the reeds. Miriam watched from a distance. Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe, opened the basket, and took pity on him, declaring, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Miriam offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse him. The child was returned to his mother under royal protection, and later named Moses, because I drew him out of the water. A prince of Egypt with a Hebrew heart. Moses grew in Egyptian courts, luxury, learning, chariots, palaces, yet he belonged to his people. Seeing an Egyptian taskmaster beat a Hebrew, Moses struck him down. When his deed was discovered, he fled Egypt and became a fugitive. The exile of a future leader. In Midian, Moses defended Reuel's daughters, married Zipporah, tended flocks and lived in silence. In Egypt, the Israelites cried out. God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant. The burning bush and the call. Near Mount Horeb, Moses saw a bush on fire, yet not consumed. A voice called, "Moses, Moses!" He answered, "Here I am. Do not come near, remove your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground." God revealed himself. "I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." He had seen Israel's suffering, heard their cries, remembered his promise, and chosen Moses to deliver them. Moses protested, "Who am I? What shall I say? What if they do not believe me? I am slow of speech. Please send someone else." God provided signs, staff to serpent, hand leprous and whole, Nile to blood, and appointed Aaron to speak. Return to Egypt. Moses left Midian with Zipporah and his sons, carried the staff of God. Aaron met him, and together they returned. They gathered the elders. Aaron spoke God's words, Moses performed signs, the people believed and bowed in worship. A confrontation with empire. Moses and Aaron stood before Pharaoh. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Pharaoh scoffed, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Pharaoh increased their burden. Moses cried to God, and God answered, "Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh." The Exodus begins. After plague struck Egypt, Pharaoh relented. "Up, leave my people, go, serve the Lord." About 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children, departed with families, flocks, hurried bread, Egyptian treasures, and Joseph's bones. God guided them with a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. Pharaoh's pursuit. Pharaoh assembled chariots, horsemen and soldiers, and thundered after them. Panic rose. "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to die in the wilderness?" Moses stood firm. "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord." The God who stands between. Trapped between mountains and sea, with Egypt behind, God moved the pillar of cloud behind Israel, forming a barrier. Moses lifted his staff as wind began. The parting of the Red Sea. The Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and made the sea dry land. Walls of water rose, a dry corridor appeared. Families, flocks, old and young, crossed on firm seabed beneath moonlight, moving toward freedom. The Egyptians give chase. Pharaoh saw the open path and charged with chariots. Wheels rattled, hooves thundered. The Lord threw the Egyptian forces into confusion. Chariot wheels jammed, horses reared. They cried, "Let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them." The sea returns. Moses stretched out his hand. The wind stopped. The walls of water collapsed with thunderous roar. Chariots overturned, and the Egyptian army was swallowed raw. Freedom on the shore. On the far shore, Israel turned and saw the destruction. Fear melted into reverent trust. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. They believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. The Song of Deliverance. At dawn they sang, "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea." Miriam led women dancing with tambourines. "Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously," into the wilderness. They journeyed into Shur. 3 days without water. Mara's water was bitter until Moses cast a piece of wood and it became sweet. They camped at Elim with 12 springs and 70 palms, a nation learning to trust. In the desert they complained, "You brought us out here to die." God provided manna by morning, quail by evening, and water from a rock at Horeb. Pharaoh is gone, but enemies remain. Amalek attacked. Moses stood on the hill with the staff. When his hands were raised, Israel prevailed. Aaron and Hur supported him. A growing nation, a prepared leader. Jethro advised Moses to appoint leaders and delegate, preparing him to lead a nation destined for God's law. The Exodus is the story of power, promise, and freedom. From a baby in a basket to a prince who ran, a shepherd called by fire, and a leader who stretched his staff over the sea. God sees suffering, hears cries, chooses deliverers, defeats impossible odds, and leads his people toward the promised land. This is the story of Moses and the Exodus, Exodus 1-14.